All right, guys, I want to address landing fish and damaging fish, okay? And this is going to be primarily bass and striped bass because every so often I release a video, one of my latest on YouTube, where I see these comments, and I know probably 99, 98% of you watch some of my other videos on this, and you realize what I'm doing is actually better for the fish, or not damaging them just because you've heard things or you've learned things or you experienced it yourself. So I'm not addressing all of you out there. I'm addressing the few that like to go around and police how people land fish or how they hold fish for quote unquote damaging them. And there's a few things that came about over the last few years in bass fishing. First, it was the study showing that how you hold their jaw can fracture or break their jaw potentially. I'll get into that. Another one was Major League Fishing with landing penalties, not letting the fish touch the carpet, destroying their slime coat. And I'll get into that. Yes, it partially does do damage, not a lot, or releasing them super low outside the gunnel, so it's not a penalty. Well, what happened is it seems like there is a percentage of the fishing community that jumped all over this like it is super taboo to do anything outside of this, okay? And you may say right away, well, Nick, we know you flip bass into the boat all the time. You flip bass. I do. I flip bass all the time. I've flipped some giant ones. Most of the time it's just being lazy. I don't want to get down and land them, but there's safe ways to do it and there's not so safe ways to do it. I actually released a video, and I'll put it in the description of this, physically showing how to flip a bass properly. But what I want to reiterate here, there's wrong ways and right ways to do everything. So when you see me flip a bass, and I'll even put a little B-roll in here for you. When you see me flip it, notice that my rod stays bent, my line stays tight. I'm reducing the fish's weight. I'm holding some of the fish's weight on the rod as I boat flip them. I'm not dropping them on slack line, letting their heads slap the ground. You'll see their tail touch the deck, but the fish's head still suspended off the surface. I'm maintaining line tension, okay, to where he's not slamming his head on the deck. When I flip them in, I don't let their head slam on slack line. That can really, really damage the fish, all right? So that is not what I'm doing. Another thing, in my striper video, guys are like, oh, you're being so rough with the fish. It's destroying the slime coat. What physically destroys the slime coat is when a fish is pushed against the deck, okay? Where it's marine grade carpet. I couldn't even get the word out. If you're sliding that fish, that's going to really damage it. If you're holding and maintaining line tension just to get a hold of their jaw and get the hook out, that fish's tail may slap around a little bit, but you're doing very minimal damage. Oftentimes, netting does more damage to the slime coat. And you can look up all the studies. They're all available online. I don't need to cite nothing. Just go look it up for yourself. But the reality is you have those shallow rubber knotless nets like conservation nets. Frabill has some of those. I actually was using one of those not too long ago in a video. And those are much safer versus your traditional nets where it puts the fish in an awkward bend or the hook gets caught in the net. The fish is spinning, therefore it rips the hook out. Another thing too, I want you to keep in mind this, okay? Let's take Major League Fishing for an example. When they said, you can't let the fish touch the carpet. What do you think's more dangerous for a fish? And think about this dead seriously. From being in a standing position, it falling off the hook and slamming against the deck, or having its tail with a little tension on the deck, then it pops off and it just happens to land from this high, or the person picks it up by the jaw at that point. Of course, boat flipping it, letting the tail just come down with under tension and then easing there until the angler can control the fish and get the hook out is way safer. Of course, I don't even know why they want to dangle it, take the risk of the fish flipping off, someone getting hooked in the boat, or the fish tearing its jaw out, and then falling, impacting the deck. You know how much worse that is for the fish? Come on. Another thing too, when we're releasing fish, and mostly I do this with stripers, I release bass lower. If I'm going to toss it in, I'll get the bass somewhere around knee height when I toss them in. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not trying to belly flop the fish. If you'll notice, it's called a torpedo release. All right, so we hold the jaw and we kind of just lower hand pitch them out to where they're going to turn, and they're going to basically head dive when they hit the water. it's a very safe release for the fish. I'm not throwing the fish 10 feet in the air, okay? And especially for striped bass. If you catch a fish, you get them in quick. Another way to really hurt fish is too long of a fight. If you're letting them exert themselves in the net and twist around, getting overly exhausted, or you can't get them in time, like that's actually more dangerous for them than rubbing off any sort of slime coat material on the deck of your boat. That longer fight, you can look up every study once again, the longer the fight, the worse off it is for the fish. Way more than pretty much anything else except for a high impact, okay? So I pull the fish in fast, I flip them up, their head is under tension, I maintain control, I grab them, I pop the hook out, and I torpedo release that fish. That is safer than the vast majority of things. Sure, could I have gotten lower, flipped them a little bit easier, been a little bit more cautious, or released them a little bit lower? Yes. Does it make a difference? Minuscule. I'm out fishing fast, performing fast, trying to get the next cast in. Ultimately, I'm out there to catch the fish. So if you're one of these people that is freaking out over the fish touching the carpet, now, if someone flips it in on slack line and its head smacks it and the fish is flopping around and the line's not under tension, yeah, that's horrible. I'm not going to act like I don't get frustrated when I see that. I'll learn the right way to do it. Same thing with releasing a fish. I've seen guys flick them way in the air. That's rude. It's disrespectful. Don't do it. Yeah, it's a fish. Okay, I get it. But let's be a little bit more respectful about it. Now the jaw wrenching thing. Dude, that's on bass like over 4 pounds, and you really, really got to wrench it, okay? Yes, a big fish, if you naturally go to turn it sideways and you're holding it with one hand, your own wrist starts to hurt at that point. You can feel when it's a problem. That's where you support the belly and pick it up. But holding a bass's mouth open all the way with its thumb like that, and the bass is still down, if he's arched sideways and it's one hand and it's like a 5 or 6 pound fish, that person's wrist is hurting like hell. And yeah, it's a little disrespectful at that point, but the odds of it breaking a bass's jaw is so low, it's ridiculous. That study honestly drove more people crazy with the amount of fishing police running out there commenting that than anything else. Look, there's a lot more things that damage bass than the way you hold their jaw, the way you boat flip them, and the way you release them. Fishing in water that's over 80 degrees, just hooking that fish alone is way worse for a bass than anything else. When it's low oxygen, or if you're fishing a river system that's got low flows, when that fish is accustomed to higher dissolved oxygen rates, that's way worse. Fishing during the spawn, if you don't know how to properly do it and how to properly get the female and not harm the male that's actually protecting the eggs, that's way worse. And there's not a lot of policing about that because it's a higher education level on understanding what to do and what not to do. So what I would suggest is actually go and watch back my bed fishing for bass video, because people think that's super taboo, but if done correctly, it's perfectly fine, perfectly safe. So what I want to encourage you to do is, if you are feeling the urge to go police someone's video and telling them they're doing something wrong, is make sure you're really educated. I don't want to sit here and say you're an idiot or anything like that, because ultimately you want what's best for the fishing, the fish, and the fishery. So I appreciate that. I really do. It's like, I try to not get pissed off or irritated when people comment that, although it's a little bit annoying. But the difference is I do this every day. I'm very educated in it. So I have to take the higher ground and think that maybe they just didn't know the details. Anyhow, guys, I'm Nick the Informative Fisherman. Appreciate you watching.